Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
Joey Beltran, welcome to the Center of the Universe.
Hello, thanks for having me in.
Yeah, man, I guess we should start with you and I connected through Rich Dalton. How do you know Rich?
Oh, I know Rich. Man, he was on the original MMA team that I joined up with. It was North County Fight Club. And we had some great fighters on there, such as myself, Rich, Jason Lambert, Eddie Sanchez were like the big UFC vets, active UFC guys back when I joined. So it was a really good squad.
Yeah, that's awesome. I read your Wikipedia. I guess the first question I have for you is how did fighting become a thing for you?
Well, I mean, I always wanted to fight. Well, the dream began when I was a little kid. My uncle took me to see wrestling, and I saw Andre the Giant versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan in the main event at the San Diego Sports Arena. And back then I was 5 years old, so I thought it was real fighting, of course. And so I remember that's what I want to do. I want to fight in like arenas in front of people. Like that just was always the dream. And then later on I found out obviously that it was fake, and then but then I fell in love with boxing. Growing up, Julio Cesar Chavez fights were just like, community events. Like, I remember like the entire apartment complex would congregate in the center, and some way somehow there'd be a TV. Whoever ordered it, there'd be a TV in the middle, and it was just like all the kids would play all day, and line up around the TV to watch Chavez fight. And that's just how it was growing up. It was awesome.
Yeah, you're born in California, but you're Mexican American.
Yes.
Mexican descent. And I know that about you, Joey, because your nickname. Tell me where your nickname came from.
Man, I one person only gets credit for that. Is, Eddie Sanchez, formerly Eddie Dirty Sanchez, and then he had to change his name to the Manic Hispanic, but whatever. Eddie Sanchez, UFC veteran. One day I was about my second or third fight in, and he just looked at me and he's like, "You're the Mexicutioner." And I was like, I like it. And then I went out, won the next fight, and had it announced, and it just stuck.
I'm surprised nobody had that nickname before you.
I know. I was like, I think there was like a lighter-weight guy like from Oklahoma, and in my mind I was like, well, whoever gets it announced by Bruce Buffer first gets to keep it. So I won the race on that.
Yeah, it sounds like you won it fair and square.
Yes.
All right, so as a Mexican American and having read your Wikipedia, you got into the fight game as a kid in boxing.
Yeah, man. I remember it took a while of me like crying and begging my mom to let me go, because a lot of the older kids, once again in that apartment complex, would go and train at this guy. His name was Frank's. They would just like, we're going to Frank's to train. Like, yeah, I want to go to Frank's house. Like, what the hell? And Frank is a gentleman by the name of Frank Sereno, who has an organization. It's called Join Hands Save a Life Foundation, and it's a community. It's basically a community boxing program to help keep the kids off the streets and out of gangs, and yeah, man, he's been doing it for forever, since I was a little kid. And And so that's where I went. I went to Frank's. Literally like a day or two after I turned 10, my mom finally let me go, and man, I just fell in love with it. I just really did. I just really like enjoyed like just the one-on-one aspect, like the combat, like getting punched in the face. Like it wasn't like scary to me or anything. And oftentimes, because I was so big, like I would always have to spar like older guys or grown-ups. Like it was like when I was 10, I was sparring 15-year-olds. When I was 15, I was sparring grown-ups. And that's just how it was for me, just because of how big I was.
Oh.
And I think it really helped out in my development and my toughness and my hard head for my later on in career.
You're 6'1", so when you say you're big, I mean 6'1" is pretty tall, but were you like what 250 plus?
Oh, and yeah, and like in 7th grade, I was like 200, and then like yeah, by the time I graduated high school, it was like 275, 280.
Oh my
I was
gosh!
definitely yeah, I got real big like afterwards. Like it's like I was definitely like chubby. Don't get me wrong, but I always worked out. I always lifted weights. I always had like 24-hour fitness membership. So I always like loved lifting weights. I just wasn't. I just ate like shit. Whatever.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, I remember when I first went into MMA, I was like 310 pounds, and my first fight was at super heavyweight. I weighed 285.
that's a lot of weight to carry for a 6'1" guy, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so.
So you fighting older people when you're fighting 15-year-olds when you're 10, you're fighting adults when you're 15. That had to be good for you, picking up your skill set and refining your skill set. Sounds like it anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it definitely like helped with just getting over like a lot of the mental blocks. A lot of like even now, like I, s- I have to remind myself like with me with my coaching now with like kids and stuff, or I call them kids, but they're like 17, 18, 19, 20. So kids to me. When I'm training these young people, I have to remind myself like they didn't grow up like you, Joey. Like it's okay. Like go easy. Like go a little easy on them. I'm like I had this one guy. He's like, because the guy was like 6'3" and had muscles. He's like, oh, are you sure it's his first fight? I was like, yeah, it's his first fight. The coach wouldn't lie to me. Like it's his first fight. Why you say that? Well, he looks like he has skills. Like, are you fucking kidding me? It looks like he has skills. Like no, man. Like what somebody looks like has nothing to do with what they can do in the ring. Unfortunately, you're gonna learn that the hard way. And so it's like all that being said, long-winded answer. Like, yeah, man, it definitely really helped. Like, I was definitely afraid at first. It's not like I walked in all brave, but it definitely helped with like, yeah, man. It's like how somebody looks or how old they are or even how big they are really doesn't matter. It's not. It's what skills they have. It's what they can do with their hands.
So you've been punched in the face more times than the average person. How many punches? How many punches to the face did it take before it didn't bother you at all?
Oh man, it's like there's only been a few that really like, for lack of a better, like bothered me over the years. You know, it's like funny because like the ones that knock you out, you don't feel anyways,
Hmm.
and if you get hit, you get dropped. It's like for me, every time I've been dropped in a fight, I get pissed. I'm like, oh my god, because I'm still aware. I'm here. I'm here on I'm here on Earth. So I get mad. I get up as fast as possible and try to get it back. When you get knocked out, it's like you're not here. You go to another dimension. You go to the shadow realm, as they say. So it's like, oh well, what can you do? You wake up and it's more like, fuck. Like every time I've been knocked out, I wake up and I see the doctors around me checking on me. I'm like, Ah, dang it. Really? God dang. And it's like, you know, time to get up.
Well, I watched your fight against Stipe, and the announcers and I were amazed at how well you take a punch. It's unbelievable. And what did you say to me when I talked to you 2 or 3 weeks ago? What did you say to me? Do you
About
remember?
what? About,
You said,
no.
"Yeah, I have a really good chin until I don't."
Yeah, no, I mean, it's yeah, it helps. It helps, but then at the end of the day, when it wears off, it wears off. There's no real like warning label, or like an internal time clock to that. It's just kind of it's all good until it's not.
Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately.
So when you fight, would you say boxing is your best strength, your best skill set? Because you've
Um,
trained jujitsu, you've trained wrestling, but boxing is really where you started. Is boxing the dominant style for you?
if it's an MMA fight, I would say more so Muay Thai.
Okay.
But that's why it's like Muay Thai, but not like I'm out here ripping kicks, clinch, like dirty, like. That's why I flourished in BKFC because they have a different rule set. The BKFC's rule set is different from BYB. It's different from Valor. It's different from BKP because they allow the clinch.
Mm.
So for me, that was right in my wheelhouse. I love clinch fighting from Muay Thai, like the knees, the elbows, the inside dirty fighting. I love that. That's my happy place. So that's why I really feel like I was able to flourish in, under the BKFC banner.
Oh, I didn't realize you could do all of that in BKFC.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, as long as one hand is punching, they're gonna let the fight go.
Ah,
So you can collar tie up, you can overhook their arm, you can underhook their arm. As long as the other hand's fucking punching, you're good to go.
nice. And you have a really you held the championship for a while, right?
Yeah, I defended it 2 times. I was a 3-time world champion for them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I believe, still to this day, I have the most title defenses at the heavyweight.
I think
As a
that's right.
heavyweight, yeah.
I think that's right. Yeah. Well, and so
Yep.
you were 310 at one point, and then you eventually made it to middleweight.
Yeah.
You fought middleweight.
Yeah. Well, how that happened is I fought for the 205 title for Bellator, and then unfortunately I got my jaw broken,
Mm.
and so then I had my mouth wired shut for 9 weeks, and so I lost a bunch of weight. I had to be on a liquid diet, and yeah, so like towards the end of it, I was like walking around at like 196, and so my manager was like, "Hey, it's right there. Why don't we see how you feel at 185?" So I was like, "All right, sounds good." And I went and I fought once. I beat Brian Rogers, who was a longtime Bellator standout. I was like, "Cool." And I fought Kendall Grove. I lost to Kendall Grove. And I'm like, well, I mean, if it's 50-50, I would rather eat. So I'm going back to 205. And
Did
then, yeah, that's how that worked.
did you feel like you were weaker at the lower weight?
No, I mean, I always say like even at 205, like my biggest regret in my whole MMA career was not staying at heavyweight, because it's like it wasn't as if just because I could make 205 that I became more athletic or I became faster. It's like, no, I'm still a heavyweight athlete. I'm just skinnier. I could make the weight. So it's like I like to compare it in terms of like football. It's like I was like a lineman, and now all of a sudden I'm going against linebackers. It's like a different level of athlete, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I wish I could go back. I wish I would have stayed at heavyweight. That's why when I went to bare knuckle boxing. I was like, I'm gonna be a heavyweight. I'm gonna be a heavyweight, and I did really, really good there.
Yeah. So when you were a kid, the idea was you were going to be a boxer, right?
Yeah, that was the original dream. That's why it's like when people are like, "Oh, are you retired?" I'm like, maybe. I would like to do at least one traditional glove boxing fight, just because that was the original dream, and that would be my third professional sport, and that'd be pretty cool as
That'd be
well.
really cool. So you've never been in a professional boxing fight.
No, only BKFC.
So what took you off the boxing path and took you down the MMA path?
um. So what had happened was is I did boxing for a long time, and then I got into high school. I basically boxed from like 10 to like 15, and then once I started wrestling, I got really really good at. I was really good at that, and so that it took me down that way. And then I got hurt senior year playing football and tore my ACL,
Mm.
and so that that put a damper on things. And then after high school, I was just like ran around, was like an idiot, ran around with the local gang and fucking did lots of drugs, went to jail for 4 months, and then was just going down the wrong path, and then started cleaning up my act. And then when I was around 22, went back to school, and then transferred to University of Hawaii, just academic, not no playing sports or nothing, and transferred to the University of Hawaii. And then when I was out there, one day I was waiting on my bus, and I looked over, like, what the hell's going on there? What's going on over there? I walked over the parking lot, and it was a gym called the Bulls Pen, and the head coach name was Dino Fernandez. And I walked in, I was like, oh my god! I was like, what the hell is this? I watched the class the first day, went back, tried it out, and he really liked me. And since I had boxing and wrestling experience, he fucking let me train for free because I was gonna help his heavyweights that had fights coming up. So then I really just caught the bug there, and I stayed just there training. And really, what happened, the paradigm shift in my brain is like when I went to a show at the Blaisdell Arena in Honolulu, which is like, I would say it's a decent size, probably like 5 or 6 thousand people, pretty decent sized arena. And to see like my friends that I was just training with on Wednesday fighting in front of thousands of people on Saturday, I was like, oh, like this is real. Like this can really happen. It's not just a dream. And so when I went back home, and then I remember I was in junior college again because something happened with I dropped out of Hawaii, went back to junior college. So now I'm like 24. I'm like, man, am I really gonna? If I'm gonna do this, I have to do it right now. So I dropped out, and I remember I told my mom, told my friends, like, yeah, I'm gonna go wrestle. I'm gonna go fight. And they're like, what do you mean you're gonna fight? I'm like, I'm gonna be a professional fighter. And everyone, first thing out of everyone's mouth was, what about your knee? What about your knee? I was like, well, if I'm not meant to fight, then I'll get hurt. But if I am, God will protect me. I'll be all right. And so that's just the mindset I had. I just went all in. And I remember I wrote down all my goals and everything, and my plan for what was gonna happen. And I remember I gave myself 3 years. I was like, if I'm not in a big show in 3 years, then I'm gonna retire, because I'm not gonna be one of these guys that's just fucking building up the record on King of the Cage for the rest of their life. Like, I'm not gonna do that. And sure as shit, you can look it up on SureDog. Like, I made it into UFC a 4 days shy of my 3 year mark.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good thing you said it 3 years, not like 2.5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
So,
hey,
so
Joey, you mentioned football. What position did you play in football?
center. Yeah.
You're obviously a bigger kid. You also have to be a really bright guy to play center too. You have to know a lot about what's going on the line, right?
Yeah. It was fun. It was funny. Like I actually played a season of junior college ball. Like it was funny. I remember like I went to one practice, one wrestling practice, and I went and I did it, and I was like, I have too much respect for the sport, and I don't really want to fucking make this my life right now. So I'm gonna go play football and have fun. And so I went and played football instead. I was like a different level. If those that know, it's a fucking whole different other beast to be in a junior college wrestling program than it is to be on a fucking junior college football team. Like football, you can still have fun, work hard, have fun, lift weights, drink beers, bang girls, have fun. Like wrestling is like, no, that's your fucking life. You
Yeah.
know, so I was like, I'm gonna go play football instead. And then yeah, so I did that.
So you
It was fun.
mentioned going to the gym would help keep you off the streets and keep kids from getting into trouble, but it sounds like you ended up uh, being in a gang. Like boxing kept you off the streets until a certain point. What was it about the lure? And if Joe, if you don't want to talk about this, I'm fine not talking about it. But
Oh
what was the lure of the gang?
no, oh no, man. So I want to be very make sure it's that correct. I was not in a gang. I didn't get jumped in or anything like that.
Okay,
It was actually like my old friends from elementary school that they were all jumped in,
got it.
and but then like because like our life, they went this way, my life went that way. They like it was crazy how it happened. Like me getting so like rewind a little bit. I got kicked out of school in junior high for being really bad for really like in like 3 months. I was boom. They booted me out of there. And seventh grade, that was like me getting transferred over to another school in another city. Um, kind of like saved me because that was like the year that everybody got jumped in. And then by the time I came back in high school, like they were all gone. Like all my friends that growing up from school, growing up from elementary school, training boxing with, they were all like on fucking this gnarly path. And then I came back and I was like, oh, and then I got into wrestling, and then my life went a different way. And then after, like I said, then I got hurt senior year, and I wasn't able to like um really pursue sports or anything like that after high school because my knee was buying, and I was hanging around local back at the same old spots. I ran into my same old friends and started doing this new new things, if you get my drift,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like with the same old people, you know what I mean? And that's how that worked out. So it's like, yeah, I was never jumped in or anything like that, but they're still my friends, they're still my boys, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's how that worked. That's how that worked out.
It
Yeah.
sounds like you getting kicked out of junior high was a really good thing for you.
Yeah, man. It's crazy when I think about like how that fucking me getting kicked out and like being in so much like chaos and just like all constant yelling and my mom and everybody freaking out, and because I grew up with a single mother, you know, so it's just like always just being fucking just like yelling and getting yelled at and stuff thrown at me, you know, whatever. It was just like, oh my god. But like really, I mean, that man, that's what that I look back, that's what saved my life. Chronologically, that's what saved me.
Yeah, that's wild, man. The chances of that happening to you are pretty low, right? The timing working out the way it did, it's
Yeah,
kind of nuts.
yeah,
Hey,
definitely.
all right. So I was reading about you, and you were fighting some guy. He was a kickboxer, and he was like just crushing your leg with kicks. And he said after the fight, he couldn't believe you could withstand all of those kicks. Do you have a different threshold for pain than the average person? You have to, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, as you're talking about Pat Barry, and I mean, honestly, adrenaline's a motherfucker because, like, that fight, I was doing so well and I was so hyped in the crowd because it was a, it was a fight for the troop show. So those guys, they were the troops, man. They were going crazy. So it was so electric in that arena, so crazy that they were so hyped, and we were just scrapping, and it was like we were going back and forth, and I just had it in my mind. Every time he kicks me, I'm gonna punch him in the face 5 times,
Mm.
and that's the approach I had to have, and I was doing a really good job of doing that, and we were going back and forth, and I was winning, then he was winning, and I was winning, and he was winning, and then something happened where he poked me in the eye, and when he poked me in the eye, it like stopped. The fight stopped for like a good like 4 or 5 minutes for me to recover. And that when that stopped and all the adrenaline wore off, then I fucking
Oh,
oh my god, now all the pain rushed. I feel like the last minute 30 was just him whooping my ass, and then he won the fight. And like I was so mad. It was just like, man, like really, like who knows what would have happened if that eye poke wouldn't have happened. But oh well. But
yeah.
yeah.
You probably win the fight if that didn't happen. Sounds like.
Definitely, no, definitely, definitely. I think I can. I'll go out and say that for sure.
Yeah.
But it did so well.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. The two most well-known opponents you fought are Stipe and Rampage Jackson. Is that fair?
Yeah, for sure.
Are one of those guys the toughest guy you ever fought, or is it somebody else?
I mean, Stipe is. I mean, on paper, it's definitely the best person ever. But like, as far as like, I was thinking about this. My hardest fight was having to be going 5-5s with Tony Lopez for the King of the Cage title. Like
Mm.
right before I got into the UFC, like that was so crazy, man. Just like going to like the flow, like me winning around, him losing, him winning around, me winning around, him winning around, like and like the like almost getting choked out, and then beating it, and then dropping them, and then like going back, and then getting busted, get my head busted open, and like it was like so many like emotions through just the course of 25 minutes, and like you really do learn so much about yourself, like what are you willing to go through, like how much does this shit really mean to you, and you know, like, and then at the end, like, it was funny. Like, at the end, they didn't even announce the cards. They just said, winner by decision, Tony Lopez. And then, like, everyone in the crowd all started booing. People were, because it was a heavy Tony Lopez crowd, because it was King of the Cage, it was his show. He was the champ. People were throwing the green, because Kryptonite, they were throwing the fucking green T-shirts in the cage and stuff like that. And then all of them, his wife came up to me, and before that, like me and Tony were talking mad shit. Like this is funny. This is like back in the day on MySpace. We're talking mad shit, and like, and I remember I said, tell your fucking wife to shut her mouth and keep her nose out of her goddamn business. Like it was nasty. And so then when his wife came up to me after the fight, and she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry this happened. You'll get your rematch. You'll get your rematch. And then I was like, you know what? Honestly, man, I'm sorry that I ever disrespected you like that. Don't worry about it, man. It's all good. Shit happens. And then I walked away, and like, so it's like that was crazy. That was a crazy fight.
Yeah, judging in boxing and in MMA, it's highly subjective, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
So,
it's like it doesn't surprise me what happened this past weekend at all. With
and
Ngannou and Fury.
yeah, yeah. Well, I actually didn't see who won that fight. Who won it?
Tyson Fury won.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was a boxing match, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've taken what's the most powerful punch to throw? Is it a hook? Undercut or uppercut?
I mean, it really all depends, like who throws it and the situation. I would probably say like I'm sure there's been a lot, but like the one that sticks out of my head was Sergey Karatanov's uppercut in Russia. Like boom, he hit me with that. I remember like in my head I was just grab him, grab him, grab him. I just held on, clinched, and I was like, oh my god, and then went back to fighting. But like it's what's funny is I can't remember who, but I definitely feel there's been multiple times in my career where I've been hit and just, grab him in my head, grab him, grab him. Yeah, but
Well, so the reason I asked, go ahead.
yeah, he's definitely one I remember. His uppercut.
Yeah, so let's go with uppercut. You've taken punches with gloves, boxing gloves on, and bare knuckle. How much more? How much more damaging is the bare knuckle punch relative to a gloved punch?
I mean, I always say the biggest, like, as far as pain or the impact, it's the same. To me, at least, it's the same. The difference is in bare knuckle, you get hit, boom, and then you step back, and you'll feel like the blood start coming down. You're like, ah, shit, like, damn it, I'm split. You'll feel on the side. You'll feel like the cold. I always remember like the first fight with Tony Lopez of all people, and he cracked his thing right here, and it split open, and I stepped back and I felt like you feel the wind. The wind feels different on your skin than it does on your your flesh, your inside flesh. It feels different on your inside meat than it does on your skin, and that's how I knew. I was like, ah, damn it, I'm busted open, and so yeah, that's the biggest thing is that like you take a clean one in bare knuckle, you're gonna get cut.
Yeah, and if you get cut above your eyes, it can affect your vision too, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Have you been cut above your eyes, had trouble seeing, and then came back to win the fight?
Um, yeah, for sure. I mean, ooh, who cut me? Yeah, I was cut in Marcel's Dams. I was cut like right away. Is it this one? Let me feel. Yeah, this eyebrow. Right away, like first round with the hillbilly hammer, Sam Shoemaker. Fucking boom, hit me with a stiff jab in my title defense against him in Miami. Boom, stiff jab, bang! I felt it right away, it like burned, it like sizzled, like it's weird sensation. I thought, damn it! And then my cut man, I had the best cut man in the game working my corners in bare knuckle. Shout out to cut man Vic Starita. Vic, yeah, I mean he kept it under wraps for the next 4 rounds, and I went out and won a dominant decision. So it was all good.
You've been in a lot of fights, Joey. The average fighter does not fight that many fights. Is that fair?
I mean, I guess if you stick around doing something for 17 years, you'll do a lot of it. You know.
Yeah.
I had what is it 30 34 MMA fights. Yeah, I was 18, 15 and 1. Yeah. And then I was 10 fights in bare knuckle.
Yeah, 5, 4, and 1, I think, bare knuckle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Winning record in both, man. That's a lot of fights.
Yeah. Crazy, man.
All right, what's your best punch?
On mine is a short straight right hand.
But that's from left foot forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a short, like a right cross. Like for whatever reason, for whatever reason, it's gotta be real close. Like I generate a lot of power from close quarters with that right hand. I've come to find out.
Is that natural, or did you train like that?
I mean, it's just something that happens. It's natural, just over time. I found out, and from sparring partners, and from dropping people in fights and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's wild. What do you remember from the Rampage Jackson fight?
I thought it was bullshit the way it ended. Also, it's like I do take responsibility. I made a mistake because um the plan was do not exchange with them until the second round, and then the first round started going so good in my head. I was like, oh, I got this, and then we're like, boom, and I hit him. I hit him with a clean right hand, bah, and then like we ended up in the middle again, and I was like, all right, okay, and here he comes, and I hit him with a counter, grabbed him in the knee, and then boom, he hit me with the left. And I remember I dropped, it fell to my hands, and I heard the buzzer go off. I heard that shit and everything. I stood up. All right, fuck. That hurt. I'm okay. Walked to my corner, and then I'm sitting there, and then the doctors start coming up to me. And I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? I looked at my corner, and it was Eric Del Frio. He's like, Joey, so relax. We can't do anything about it. Relax. Like, oh my god, what the fuck? And yeah, so they called it. I got dropped, fell to my hands, not on my face, fell to my fucking hands. I was on all fours. Buzzer went off, and they stopped the fight. So it's definitely upsetting, but whatever. It's all good.
Well, you
It's
work
all
really
good.
you work really hard, right, for those fights and have it stop like that. That's got to be very frustrating.
Yeah, especially it's like it's a big show. Like, let me go out on my shield. It's not a big deal. You know, it is what it is, though. It's okay.
So when you go into fights, let's say you go into a 3-round fight, there's a plan for each round, and then I guess it gets adjusted depending on what happens in the prior rounds.
I mean, it really depends on who the coach is, how the training camp's gone, who the opponent is, etc., etc. It's like I remember like a few fights I've had game plans worked great for me. Like that's very much how I am in my real life. It's like if I have a system, if I work within a system, or if I have a plan, or even a fucking to-do list for the day, like I do really good. It's like when I'm left to like kind of run amok and do my own thing, and then I'm like, well, I might end up in some dark corner somewhere, But it's like if I have a list, if I have a fucking game plan, I'm good. So it's like I remember being like at Alliance, and my coach telling me he's like, this opponent's perfect for you. You just gotta go out there and beat Joey. Just beat Joey and you'll smash. And in my head, I'm like, oh no, like what? No, what does that mean? Like I suck. Like what do you mean beat Joey? Like I didn't have a plan. Joey's not even good. Like I didn't have a plan. You know, and so much of it is like just like the mental side of things. Like, and when I was in the UFC, when I was in Bellator, like I was just my own worst enemy in terms of like negative self-talk, my self-belief, my own limitations that I would put on myself. And just because I don't know when I look back, I'm like, it's like the whole time I was in the UFC, I was like, it's all right. I'm probably gonna get cut next fight. It's like 3 years later, well, I don't know. I'm probably gonna get cut next fight. Who cares? It's like so silly. And so then, fast forward to when I was in the bare knuckle, um, I had a mental coach,
Mm.
and fuck, man, like it wasn't like I got old. As I got older, I got faster or stronger. Like, no, man, I just had my mind on straight, so that's why I was able to win a world title and defend it 2 times. It's like it's like shout out mental sensei, my man Caleb, man. He really just has had me on point with like just making plan, making a game plan, myself, and not only for the fight, but for the training camp and everything, like, and being very diligent about sticking to the game plan throughout. And I'm not a big visualizer, like visualization, stuff like that. Like, but what I'm a believer in is like when you take pen to paper, like magic shit can happen. So it's like I would take and like script out my fights, like how I want it to happen. I would script like write out like going through negative, bad situations or getting cut and battling back and do all this stuff. Boom, boom, boom. And I remember the first fight that I did under that system, and like it was like fake low, shoot the overhand right. I was like, and in the middle of the ring, I was like, oh shit, I've seen this before. And I went fake, boom, hit him with the overhand right, and then rushed him and dropped him. And I was like, man, this worked. This stuff works. And I was a firm believer after that, you know, in the whole like mental approach and mental preparation of the fighting.
Nice. So I meant to talk about your childhood a little bit more. Where'd you grow up?
Carlsbad, California.
And you were born in Oceanside, though, right?
Yeah, it's the next town over.
Yeah. So what was it like growing up in Carlsbad? Like when you were like 9, 10, 11?
Oh, I mean, it was cool. I really liked it a lot. Like, it was like, it was funny. It was one or two things. Like, you're either like rich and white and lived up on the top of the hills, or you're like, not so rich and not so white and lived down at the bottom. But it was really cool, man. I really loved the neighborhood that I grew up in, and the people that I grew up with, stuff like that. You know, like it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun growing up. We got into trouble and stuff like that, but nothing too crazy. There were definitely kids that were doing crazy stuff, and it was like I looked at it as like this, like you could find whatever level of craziness or whatever level of trouble you wanted to find. You could definitely find it in Carlsbad. You definitely could. But it was like up to you. It's like, yeah, I don't want to go that far. I'm gonna stay down here and stay on this lane and hang out with these people and do this stuff. Still gonna have fun, you know. Still gonna push the envelope a little bit, but I'm not gonna shoot heroin, so I'm not gonna go around those people. But there's definitely those people around for sure.
Did you grew up near the water, right? I mean,
oh yeah, it's right there by the beach. We're right by the beach, yeah, for sure.
Did you do anything like surfing?
No, I wasn't that. There's definitely surfers in our area, you know, but I've surfed twice in my life. I stood up on the board 2 times, you know, but yeah, I liked going to the beach. You know what did it for me is I went to the beach one time. We would always go, and one time I almost drowned. And so that really fucking scared me. And I remember like I got pulled out by like a rip current, and I remember at first I was like, I'm okay. And then I felt like it was dragging me all the way out, and like I stopped, there was no one around, and I started freaking out, like screaming and crying, help, there was fucking nobody around. And I remember just like thinking like, fuck man, like this is it. And then like I'm telling you, I was out there screaming, crying, probably like good 10, 15 minutes. And then out of nowhere, like somebody showed up on the surfboard. It's like, hey, you need help? I was like, yeah, yes, please. And they put me on the board and took my ass in. Like whether or not that was an angel or whether or not I just didn't see the person, but he came out of. I know I was out there for a long ass time screaming and crying by myself, and then he came up out of nowhere and rescued me. So shout out to that guy, whoever he was.
How old were you then?
9.
Wow. Yeah, that's
another. It's like we would go to the beach. That was so funny when I think back now how it was. Like there'd be like a pack of us, like 6 or 7 of us, like 8, 9 years old. And as long as we had one older brother who's like 15, then we were good. Then it's like the parents would allow it. And now I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Like, no, I would never allow that to happen, but it's all good.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So you want to do one more match, right? Boxing.
Yeah, one more. Yeah.
What do you have to put? What has to be done to put a match together like that? You need a promoter. You need a manager.
I mean, yeah, I have a couple feelers out there. Um, yeah, a couple possibilities that could be working out. Um, it might be one more bare knuckle dance in me. We'll see, but I mean, really, like for my own personal goals, it's like it's about checking off a bucket list item and doing a boxing match. That takes precedence over doing a bare knuckle fight and getting a little more money. Yeah, but I would rather do a glove boxing match for sure.
Yeah, 10-year-old Joey wants you to do that match too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what do you do these days? You mentioned that you're coaching kids, and is it boxing that you're coaching?
MMA and Muay Thai predominantly.
Is that how you spend most of your time?
Oh yeah. I'm at the gym. It's called the Compound. It's in Oceanside, and my longtime friend, former training partner, Sean Loeffler is the owner of that, and he runs it, and I'm his assistant head coach, and we just run it, and have a good time.
Yeah. So you enjoy what you do.
Absolutely. It's funny. It's like, I mean, I guess I could get a normal job. But I mean, why? I just hang out in the gym and just. And what's funny is that I've had a couple times over the last 17 years of the fight career, like thinking maybe I want to do a normal job and going and trying other things. Like I remember I sold furniture for a year at More Furniture and wore the suit and tie and everything. I did that and I was pretty successful, but I was like, nah, F that. And then I worked for a Peloton, was a field specialist, so we'd go and set it up and do the whole demonstration in people's houses for like the bikes and the treadmills and stuff like that. I was like, nah, I'd rather teach. So yeah, but like the teaching, I'm sorry, the sales aspect helped me with the training as far as like following up with people, getting one-on-one clients and personal clients. That's really where the money's at. So you gotta have a little hustle behind your game.
Yes, sales experience definitely helps future endeavors and life generally. I think. Yeah. So I thought I saw something the other day that said roughly 1 in 4 people really enjoy what they do for a living, and the other 3 can't stand what they're doing. So you're the
Yeah,
one.
yeah, man. I definitely agree.
Hey,
I've definitely been on both sides of that aspect though.
yeah, I've only been on the 3 out of 4 side. Uh, so Wikipedia says you're married to a fighter. Is that right?
no, I was.
You were. Okay.
I was, yeah. That didn't work out. It's all good.
Are you married
Yeah,
now?
what one would think that, oh, two fighters will be perfect, you'll get along. Like, nah, not really. Not really.
Are you
But it's
married
all
now?
good. No, sir.
All right, right on. Kids?
No. Nope.
All right, right on. Uh, so
Oh,
have
I
you
don't
ever lived anywhere besides California, Joey?
can you see me or hear me?
Yeah, you're good on both.
Okay. Um, yeah, I've lived in Hawaii. I've lived in New Jersey. And I've lived in Miami and Virginia.
Well, let's explore each one of those. My wife's from Jersey. How did you end up in Jersey?
Um, so back then, I was dating this girl, and she's like, and that was when I was going through my rough phase, and she's like, well, you're not doing anything good here. You can always come to Jersey. I'm moving to New York, and you can move out to New Jersey and get a job. My dad can get you a job at his old dealership. I was like, oh, that sounds like an adventure. And I went out there, and then I sold cars in New Jersey for a year, and fucking and just lived it up and lived with a bunch of college kids at Monmouth University.
Yeah,
And
Jersey's very different than Carlsbad, man.
yeah.
What about Miami? What took you there?
Miami, I had my coach at the time. Uh, his name was Jason Ingwaldson. He was a really good coach of mine, and yeah, he just invited me out there, and it was supposed to be just for a 6-week training camp, and then it just ended up turning into a year. A year living out there. I got an apartment, and then yeah, it's pretty cool. That was it. Was I like Miami because it has really heavy Latino influence. Like it's like yeah, it's pretty cool. I liked it. I liked it. It reminded me like of Chula Vista, like Chula Vista vibe, like how Chula Vista down here. Chula Vista is a city right by the border in San Diego. Um, that's how it reminded me. It's like almost like sometimes you would think like you were in a foreign country, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, a lot of people refer to Miami as Little Cuba.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
All right, I'm going to guess what part of Virginia you lived in, given other places you've lived. Were you at Virginia Beach?
No, I lived in Bedford, Virginia.
Bedford?
Yeah,
Joey, that's, as you know, is in the middle of nowhere.
I know, I
What,
know.
what took you to Bedford?
Oh, my ex-wife did.
Uh, is she from there?
Yeah, that's where she's from. That's her hood.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's just it's mountains, right?
Yeah, that's it. Smith Mountain Lake and all that stuff. Yeah.
All right. So Joey, over your career, and I know you had a mental coach. I'm talking about the actual MMA coaches and bare knuckle coaches. How many total coaches have you had in your career?
Oh, I don't know, 10 maybe.
Who was
Yeah.
who was your favorite and why?
Um. Oh man, that's a good question. Um. I think the one that had the most effect, like on my current game, like on my game, like if I were to step on the mats or anything right now, is definitely Jimmy Harbison. He was a jiu-jitsu coach, and so it's like my knees. As I remember, I told you back in my story, I tore my ACL in high school. A little before that, I tore my left ACL when I was a freshman. So I got into fighting with blown out knees. Like it was just my story, and so my knees didn't bend for shit. Like literally, hardly past a 90-degree bend. They were already bone on bone, arthritic like a motherfucker by the time I started fighting. So then I got into fighting, and I'm over there still doing my thing, and I met Jimmy, and he was our jiu-jitsu instructor at Alliance for a little bit, and he helped me. And rather than try to be on my knees and like for instance like in side control, well in side control most people just get their knees right up to the person's body, like in their armpit or in the hip, and sit their butt on their heels. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You get the picture. Well, I can't do that. So I would
Mm.
get swept. I would get toppled over a lot, very easy to get that. But so now we call it the walrus. So now I'm sprawled out with my walrus tail behind me. And now we and then he helped me develop a whole system of guard passing from the walrus and just always just all. So that's when I do jujitsu and I grapple. That's I'm always in my walrus position. That's my style, and I've developed, like I said, it's really like a sneaky way to just be like heavy and just like well sneak over people's legs and pass guard, and now here I am. And I beached up on now I beached up on them. You're short and you're fucked.
It sounds like he was really good at overcoming any limitations you have by adapting to what you could do.
Yeah, exactly, man. So that's definitely, yeah.
All right, so if I want to watch your fight, is it going to be televised or do I have to be there in person?
I mean, I would imagine it's probably gonna have to be like an in-person deal. Like, I'm trying my best to find a promoter or in California. So we'll see.
All right, right on.
But but regardless of what it is, whether it's a glove boxing match or maybe something with BYB or something like that, well then everybody will know. I'll let everyone know on my social media. They'll be able to find it.
All right, nice. Well, Joey, I appreciate you doing this, man. I appreciate how tough you are. I can't imagine going through the path you went through. You're the only person I've ever talked to that has beaten a Gracie, and you're definitely in my top 1% for toughest dudes.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad Rich connected us, man. I appreciate you doing this.
Hell yeah, no problem, man. It was fun.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at scodupodcast.com.